My name is Ryan. I'm an alcoholic. All right, my sobriety date's November 24th of 2002. My home group's the Tampa Young People's Group. I also have a sponsor. I sponsor others. Gabe, thank you. I was going to mess with him on the way up, right, because we were up together, and then I was just like, right, he's probably fine. But I was going to ask him last night, and then I forgot, and he was in shorts, and that's my fault, right? He dresses like really nice at work, right? And so he went and got changed. He was going to be a leisurely night. And so my bad, dude. But it's just good to be here with y'all. I get up here every couple years, it feels like, right? I love your group. A lot of people in here I've known for a long time. And it's always good to be in an AA meeting that's enthusiastic, right? That you feel the energy when you walk in. I don't think there's a lot of people here tonight, and that's awesome, right? But if there's energy, it's great, right? There's cookies. There's a long greeting line, right? Like, to me, those are the most important things of an AA meeting. I can get up here and, talk good. It could go terrible. Who knows, right? We're all going to find out. And but if I'm welcomed, right, and if I feel at home when I walk in, that did so much for me, right? I can't tell you anything people talked about in the first meetings I went to. But I remember people shaking my hand. I remember people the next week saying, "Hey, Ryan, it's good to see you." Man, that's the sign of an AA meeting, in my opinion. But, so yeah, it's good to be with y'all. I tell you that I was just like a really weird kid growing up, right? I just really looking back with the knowledge of AA, I was self-centered to the core, right away. I just was thought so much about the way I should stand and what I should be doing, right? And I'm 4, and just really consumed with myself. I had all these imaginary friends. They were just easier, than going and trying to meet people. I have this big scar on the side of my head. I fractured my skull when I was 3. I had to wear a helmet for a year. That's not cool, right? I tried to make it cool. I put some He-Man stickers. He-Man was really cool back then. I had the He-Man stickers all over it. And I remember my mom took me to Busch Gardens, right, with this helmet on. And I was in the petting zoo when they had one there. And a goat got on its front hooves on my shoulder. It was eating my stickers off of my helmet. So I'm crying. And my mom, she kicked the goat in the side like she was an NFL place kicker. And, it has nothing to do with my alcoholism. I just always think it's funny that my mom did that, I was a Jewish kid in this all-Catholic school, right? I had all these things I could point to as why I looked different or why I felt different. But the fact was it was just self-centeredness. And when I was 8 or 9, I was in Miami with all my cousins. I'm the youngest of 7 cousins. I was an only child until I was 22. So I was with all these older cousins. My favorite cousin, he had a rat tail. He could break dance and skateboard, right? And so that was really cool. I wanted to be just like Michael, and his dad had a keg in his garage, and Michael laid down on the ground and put the tap in his mouth and started drinking out of it. And it's just the kids out there, and they're cheering Michael on, and he's super cool at this point. And so everyone kind of turns around and they're talking, and they turn back, and I'm laying on the ground with the tap of the keg in my mouth, and I'm drinking out of it, and it's Schlitz, right, or PBR, right? I'm into orange juice and Gatorade, right? It's a tough taste, and but I just wanted to be like Michael, right? So I just did as long as I could. And the honest thing is that literally from that point on, my whole life changed, right? Because I did it just long enough to figure out what alcohol does for me. For the first time, it was this huge deep breath, right? And I just felt so okay. I didn't think I was any taller or could skateboard or break dance, right? I didn't magically grow a rat tail. I just, it just felt okay. It didn't matter what you all thought anymore. And it was such a freeing feeling, right? And the other thing I remember, and I don't think I said it in these words, but I said it, it came to me, if I stop, right? I just found this feeling, right? If I stop, it's going to go away. And so I laid back down on the ground because I don't know how to drink out of a keg, and I did it again, and I got drunk. I didn't get real drunk, but I got drunk enough that it was fun. My cousins thought it was funny. I woke up the next morning, I felt fine. No consequences, right? Which is good, because at 8, that would have been rough. And I woke up, but I was I can't wait to do that as much as possible. Now, it was tough, right, as a 9, 10-year-old to get booze. But I did what I could, right? If my neighbors left their garage door open, me and my friends would be in their garage looking in their fridge for beer. We were at somebody's house and they had liquor and they left, we'd be in the liquor cabinet. And all of my friends were doing it with me, right? But there's always a little bit different. They would take a sip and they'd be like, oh, that's disgusting. And then they'd go like, play sports, right? And I'd be like, oh, that's disgusting. And I'd keep doing it. And, and I just, I loved it, right? And when I was a freshman in high school, I was like 4'10". I weighed like 80 pounds, right? There's like guys shaving, right, in the locker rooms. You know what I mean? I'm like, I hardly have to shave now. I'm almost 45, and so like that felt weird. And I didn't really have any friends. I wanted to have friends, right? I was just kind of a loser. And but I would I would drink and it would go away, right? And I'd feel okay again. And really what happened is by the time I turned, 16 or 17, I fell in with this guy that was popular, right? So I became popular by default. It's kind of like what happened with sponsorship, right? I fell in with a sponsor that was active, and I became active by default. I had a little bit of popularity because I hung out with Bert, and everyone loved Bert, and that was like the crazy friend, and we became friends. We're still friends today, right? It's been like 30 years, and we became friends because we were running cross country together, and like halfway through practice, he said, "Do you drink?" And I was like, "Heck yeah, I do," right? And we've been friends ever since. And and so I just, I was with my friends. Like, I'll tell you, it's funny because Bert drank. He did all the stuff I did, right? It was crazy. Like, we were, partying crazy, doing all kinds of stuff. Bert graduated high school and changed, right? He was like, okay, now it's time to be a man, right? And he did it, I thought about that a lot, right? Time to be a man, and I never could, right? And he went and graduated college in the appropriate amount of time, right? It took me 10 years, 8 of those sober. He just, like, everything he's done has been successful. And I had to burn my life to the ground and come to AA and listen to a sponsor that worked at Starbucks tell me how to live a life that people have been telling me for years, but I believed him. And I just started doing that deal. But going back to the drinking, by the time I was 17, I was a daily drinker. I didn't intend to be. It just kind of worked out. And I had gotten into college. And I'll tell you, so I got in. I went to Florida State. In Florida State in 1998, it was ranked the #1 party school in the nation. And I applied there because I went with my best friend, and we visited his sister who was in a sorority. And so for a weekend, my junior year of high school, I drank in Tallahassee with like 90 sorority girls. And I was just like, I cannot wait to go to college. It's going to be just like that. And my college was nothing like that. And but I apply. I get in like right at the beginning of my senior year of high school, and I take my mom's vodka bottle and I pour it in a water bottle. And like a good son, I fill hers up with water, which is just rude. And I take that to school with me, and I'm getting loaded at school. And again, like a lot of my friends were doing it with me. And what I didn't know was I was basically going to be essentially a daily drunk until I got sober. I went to this college. I was on probation within like a semester. I joined a fraternity. It was awesome, right? Like, because they would just make me drink, right? It's like people call it hazing, right? They'd be like, drink this, right? And I drink it, and then drink this, and I drink it, and until I threw up, which was what I was going to be doing that night anyway. So it wasn't, not a huge change of plans for me. And I was in this, and they were like, you're great, but when you fail out, and I'm like, I'm not going to fail out, right? And by the time I'm a second year, I'm basically getting, I'm like signing up for class, right? Because I came back to Tampa for the summer, and I was like, I'm going to grow up. I'm going to take 8 a.m. classes. Terrible idea. And I'm going to get there. I never showed up once, right? I signed up for golf class, which is what it sounds like, right? You go to the driving range, you hit golf balls, and that's it. And I actually was trying to get a job at a Ruby Tuesdays washing dishes, and they drug tested. And so I went there because my best friend that I'd partied with all the sorority girls with, he was there, and he had clean pee. And so I showed up with a water bottle. I was like, hey, man, can you pee in this? And he's like, well, yeah, but we got a midterm today, right? You should take it. And so I took it. I got like 98 because it's golf class. But then I failed because I never showed up again. And so the end of my time up in Tallahassee is basically I'm drinking every day. And I'll tell you, at one point, it was my uncle with the keg. He was a heavy drinker, right? And he would every year drink, gain a bunch of weight, he'd get gout, right? All kinds of stuff, right? Family would be mad at him for something that happened. And he would quit drinking on January 1st, and he'd go to the Super Bowl, right? And then he'd start drinking. He'd do it for 10 more months or 11 more months. Do that every year. I was like, I'm going to do what Chuck does. I made it like 3 days, and I was like, that's good enough. And then I kept drinking, right? And at the end of my time up in Tallahassee, I was literally just drinking all night long. I was, by myself, just a loser. I would be up still in the morning, just, hammered drunk. And I would go to places, like, they don't have it anymore, but like the places with the go-karts and putt-putt golf and stuff. I didn't have anything else to do, right? So I'd go there, and it'd be me and like a bunch of third-grade children on field trips. And, I'm like racing them, drunk and, yelling at the putt-putt golf and, all that stuff. And, I turned 21. I ended up back in Tampa the next day, 2 days later. Florida State at that point asked me, politely not to come back, and I came back to Tampa, and my relationship with my family, or with my dad, was pretty bad. Right, my mom was an alcoholic. Right, we ate a long leash with each other, and but my dad was like, "Look, I'm done. Do whatever you want to do." He gave me like $400 or $500. Said, "Get a security deposit on a house and don't come around." And I was like, "All right, good enough for me." And so I moved in this little place on Davis Island. I'm sure people have been there before. It was. It's a little business district. There's like beautiful homes on one side of it, and then at this point there was people like me on the other side of it. And I lived right behind this 7-Eleven, and they had 2 pizza joints. And I got a job at one of the pizza joints. I interviewed at both. I got offers at both. Right, I was a good employee. Right, and I took the one. One had only beer in their bar. One had liquor. So I took the job with the liquor bar. Right, because that's like a good 401k. And so, now I'm there. I got to go to work every day at 3. Every day at 2, I'm waking up in the afternoon, and I'm walking in that 7-Eleven, and I'm getting a 12-pack of beer, and I'm drinking them. And like literally, you can see the roof of my house from the parking lot of the 7-Eleven, and I'm drinking 1 or 2 beers on my way back to my house, and I'm putting them in a cooler in the backseat of my car, and I'm drinking and driving, delivering pizza. And somewhere along the line, I'd gotten a small TV, like a little black and white picture screen. Had like a 7-foot rabbit ear that would stick out the passenger side window of my car. Plug it into my cigarette adapter. And so I'm drinking, driving, delivering pizza, and watching TV in y'all's neighborhoods. And it's a great place to work because they paid me out of cash at the end of the night. And I would just sit in their bar and reinvest, all night long. And I don't know what they do now, but at 2:55 in the morning, they'd stop selling booze in Tampa. And I'd get all my athleticism together, right, and I'd start running. And there wasn't a lot of athleticism, right? I would take a big step, and it'd be like the entire earth moved, and I'd fall, and I'm bleeding now, and I'd walk into that 7-Eleven, and I'd see these 7-Eleven cashiers. They'd look at me with the same look of disgust and disappointment that my family would look at me with, right? Because I affect everyone, I'd get a bunch of booze, and I would go back to my little place, and I'd sit there, and I'd drink by myself, and just hope the next day would be different. And I would inevitably be sitting on the curb of that 7-Eleven about 6:55 in the morning because they'd start selling booze again at 7. And I'd watch people walk in and get their donut and their newspaper and their coffee, and I would just think, I can never be like you, right? And I'm not like, ready to, roam the earth or whatever, right? Like I'm not some rebel. I would have traded my life for theirs in a second. Sight unseen, right? I don't have to know anything about you besides the way you walk into that 7-Eleven in the morning and get coffee to know your life's better than mine, right? Because I would look at them and I would know that the night before they didn't break into their single mother's house, her house, that she would do anything in the world for me, right? She loved me more than anything. She would lay down on a train for me. And I'd break into her house and I'd steal money out of her wallet and I'd go back and I'd keep drinking, right? And if you let me into your house, I was walking out with stuff in my pocket, right? Whether it was your beer, whether it was your whatever, anything I could get, right? And I knew that those people weren't doing that. And I got to tell you that when I walked in here and I saw a 4th and 5th step, that's the stuff that came to mind, right? It wasn't like the fights I lost and could macho up and tell you I won them, right? It wasn't, some of the funny stories that I can, laugh about and stuff like that. The stuff that held me in bondage was that stuff. The stuff that when I would wake up in the morning sober and just think, you're terrible. What is wrong with you? Your mother loves you. Why would you do that? Why would you crawl across her bedroom floor in the middle of the night to take money out of her wallet when she would give it to you if you asked, right? And that would hit me like a ton of bricks, and I'd start drinking again, right? And the amazing part about it to me was there would be mornings I'd wake up and I'd have this like really firm resolution. I'm not going to drink today. I'll probably join the Coast Guard or something, right? Like something's coming. And, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. And then there'd be days where I'd be sitting on my hands like, you can make it one more hour, right? Just get to work and then you'll be fine. You'll be busy. The thing that really messed me up was there were so many days that I would wake up and like, I'm not going to do it today, right? Today I'm going to not drink. And I'd just be drunk, right? Like there was no battle. There was no mental thought. There was nothing that would happen, right? I would just, like my feet would walk me to that 7-Eleven and I'd be drinking again. And when I got sober, that really messed with me. Like, you know what I mean? Until I understood what powerlessness was, right? To me, I'm going to drink no matter what. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter good days, bad days, triggers, you know, happiness, family, you know, hard things, good things. I'm going to drink no matter what. I have no choice. And there's nothing there's no route that I could have taken from sitting on that curb of that 7-Eleven to a life that I lead today, right? It wasn't out there, right? There's no picking yourself up by your bootstraps. There was no stop being lazy, which was an issue I had, right? I was definitely lazy. And, you know, there's just not, it wasn't any way to do it, right? And I knew that. And I wish I had some like epic ending to my story, right? My wife used to be an A and she'd hear me talk and I asked her once because, you know, I mean, there's people, you hear these story endings, right? And it's like, and then I came out of a blackout, you know, with in a bank robbery, right? And I was like, well, I don't really have any of that. What's my story like? She's like, sad, you know? That was it. I was like, all right, you know? And my life was like that for like 6 or 7 months. You know, from the time I turned 21 in May till, maybe I'm doing the math wrong there, late November, right? And what happened is that, you know, for a while there, I'd wanted to tell someone I need help and I don't know what's wrong with me. And for whatever reason, my dad came to me and I hadn't talked to him in a little bit and something had happened. I'd probably stolen something from him, so he was coming to confront me. And he said something to the effect of, what's wrong with you, right? More curse words and stuff. But, you know, what's wrong with you? And I just looked at him and said, I can't stop drinking. I don't know what's wrong. And it kind of hit him like a ton of bricks, right? He said, okay, well, stay at my house tonight. We'll get this figured out. He took me back to my apartment that I was living in. And I'll tell you, you know, for me, I believe in a higher power because what I did in my place was I left enough dirty dishes and stuff all over that house that bugs just appeared right inside, right? Like mosquitoes. It's like a miracle of life, right? You leave dirty garbage in your room long enough and bugs just appear. It's amazing. And I opened up that door and the bugs flew out at my dad and he said, why don't you grab some stuff? I'll be in the car, right? And so I grab some stuff and I go and he takes me back to his house and my stepmother's extremely quick, right? But this is like a 20-minute ordeal. By the time I get back, there's a big bicycle lock on the refrigerator, and all of the booze is like hidden and locked up. And I'm like, that's, you know, I mean, rude. What do you think? What do you think I would do? Meanwhile, I've been stealing from them every time I'm in their house for months at this point. But my dad slept on the floor next to my bed, like one of those old police officers in the movies where they catch the cowboy, right? And he's like sitting outside the hotel room. And he looked at me and he said, if it gets bad, just let me know and we'll have a drink together. Right, and we'll make sure you'll make it through the night or whatever. And so about 2:30 in the morning, I'm shaking, I'm sweating, I'm throwing up, and he wakes up, he's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't feel good. And he's like, go to sleep, you know, and they sold me a bill of goods there. And you know, like I said, they thought my problem was laziness, which was a problem I had, like I said, right? It wasn't just the problem. And so for like 2 days, every time I'd sit down, they'd be like, go wash the car, go cut the grass, right? And I'm like, this is doing nothing for my, you know, compulsion to drink. And then they stuck me into a rehab. I'll tell you what, I was talking about on the way out here, rehab's like summer camp for adults, in my opinion. Man, I loved it. I smoked like 2-3 packs of cigarettes a day. I wore sweatpants everywhere I went. It was amazing. 3 meals. We had arts and crafts time. I made a bunch of hemp necklaces. You know, when I got out, my mom said, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know, but I need a bunch of hemp. Right? And they'd take us to AA meetings, and I would think, like, this is like a fun place, right? That's cool, right? But like no identification yet. And then one Friday night, and it was good because most Friday nights someone would bring an AA meeting into the rehab. And if they didn't show, usually what would happen is the person that had been in rehab the most times would lead the meeting, right? Because he had the most experience with AA. It didn't matter if you've been in and out of AA for 25 years or whatever, right? Like, he's got the most experience. He knows what to read and all that stuff. So we'd have this meeting, and it'd be insane. So this guy comes in, and he's been sober about 6 years, and he tells my story. You know, in fact, his name was Brian, right? It's one letter off. I like Ryan better personally, but Brian's are cool as well. And I went up to him afterwards, and I think I'm an alcoholic too, right? And he talked to me for 10 minutes. I don't remember anything he said. But it's important to me because basically from the time my parents got divorced when I was a little kid all the way through my alcoholism in high school, I've seen doctors, therapists, psychiatrists, hypnotists, you know, all kinds of good-natured people that want to help me, right? being a self-centered alcoholic like me, it's really hard to be hypnotized. It just is. Because they're like, you got to get really relaxed. You got to think about other stuff. Like, that ain't happening. And so I just sit there and think, what's it look like to be hypnotized? I got to act that way now, but this guy who came in and told his story for 30 or 45 minutes, I related to, and I was honest with him, right? And I knew that AA had an answer, right, at that point. I just, for whatever reason, I was kind of drawn to it. And I had a hard time going at first. And what happened is my roommate from rehab, he said he could drink wine safely, and he went out and he died that night. And, we'd been friends for, 28 days, right? We all know that. And, but there's that little bit of camaraderie, right? And he was a pretty normal dude. He had a job. He had, family that loved him. My family was coming to rehab just to yell at me. I had no job. I didn't have one thing in my life at that point that I could look at and be like, that one might work out, right? Not one thing. And this guy had a lot of stuff waiting for him on the outside. And he drank and he died that night. And I went to a noon meeting. I said, my friend died last night. I think I'm feeling like I'm going to drink. And a young woman that had been sober about 6 months, which I can, a couple weeks, that made sense to me. He told me 22 years. I'm like, you ain't like me, you know what I mean? And but this young girl came up and she carried the message. And now at this point, I've been drinking beer, whiskey, and eating pizza every day. And so I got a huge beer belly, right? And my cheeks, I'm 50 pounds overweight. I'm no social skills, right? So I say things in a conversation about 5 minutes after it should have been said. And I'm having this out of body experience with this young, attractive, sober woman's talking to me. And I'm like, there's no way, right? I'll go where she wants, but there's no way. And, for me, right, I have nothing going on in my life. But ego's amazing. Because about 10 minutes into my drive home, I'm like, man, she loves you, right? I can't wait to go to the young people's group. And so I showed up, and she had a boyfriend. She didn't want me at all, right? And, but I got swept into this group, right? And I got swept into this group where there was some young people, and Bill was there. And they were active, right? And they were having fun, but they were talking about things like sponsorship in a home group, and going to the home group on a Thursday night was an event, right? We'd be there at 6. We would go till the meeting. After the meeting, we'd go to ice cream, pizza, whatever, the hang, and we did it every Thursday night. And every Sunday night, we would have a house meeting. We'd all get together. We'd cook dinner together. We'd have an AA meeting. We'd hang out afterwards. It was another 5-hour event, and I just got swept into this group, and I honestly, my motives were I wanted to fit in. These guys looked like they had their lives together and they were doing okay, and I didn't want to be the odd guy out, so I started just kind of hanging out with them, right? Like I said, my sponsor at that time was super active, so I was just in the backseat of his car, driving places, picking up chairs, picking up other new guys, doing all that stuff, and I did an honest fourth and fifth step because I have a pigeon brother, right? I got sober, we said pigeons, right? I sponsor pigeons, whatever. It is what it is. And I had a pigeon brother that was doing his second, fourth, and fifth step, right? And he'd been sober 2 weeks longer than me. And I didn't want to get real behind in the pigeon race. And so I did an honest fourth and fifth step. But the amazing thing about it was that I was dreaming about drinking every single night. I was thinking about it all day long. And I did an honest fourth and fifth step, and I thought some miracle was going to happen. I was going to wake up, and there'd be a job offer that I didn't apply for, and a really big TV, that kind of stuff. And that didn't happen. What happened was that I kind of thought back a month or two later, and I hadn't had a dream of drinking since that point, right? The obsession was beginning to be removed, so I just got in with them, and I started to work through the rest of the steps. I did that. I started sponsoring people. I sponsored my first guy when I had 7 or 8 months of sobriety. He would call me and say, I don't know what to do about this. I'd be like, I think you should pray about it, right? And then hang up, and I'd call my sponsor, and he'd say, he told this, this, and this. What do I tell him? He said, I think you should tell him this, right? I'd hang up, I'd call him back. I said, well, I was thinking about it, right? And you should do this. But then honestly, that's what sponsorship is, right? It's just sharing my experience. It's just, my experience is what my sponsor did with me. And I just try and pass that on. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, it's other people with other experience. And if I give my time, right, I stay sober, right? And hopefully they do too. And I've been blessed with guys. I've sponsored guys my whole sobriety. I've sponsored a lot of guys right now that I've sponsored for a very, very long time, right? 14, 15 years. And that's not everybody's experience, and that's okay. It's not a requisite to sobriety. And it has nothing to do with me, right? Because I've sponsored plenty of other people that I say the exact same things to, recommend doing the exact same stuff, work the steps the exact same way, and plenty of them are drunk, right? And so nothing to do with me. And so I fell in with this AA group, and I got active, and we got busy, and we were having a blast, right? And it seemed like everything I did turned out great. And it was, right? I I met a woman in AA that I knew when I was in 7th grade, and she was in 5th grade, right? And at that point, right, she was pretty, and then I knew her in high school, and I really thought she was pretty then, and she did not like me at all. And then same thing in college. It actually happened for a while, and then whatever, in 2007, right, we started dating, we got married, and my wife's super Catholic, right, and I'm Jewish, right, and so it's funny. So my cousin looks at me like at the beginning of our wedding, because this is probably the most Jewish people in this church ever, and I was like, "You're probably right." And the interesting thing about AA is we end the Lord's Prayer at a very different time than the Catholics do, and so it was very apparent who was the AA member, right, in my wedding, because they said the Our Father. All the Catholics stopped. All the drunks kept going, right? And all the Catholics looked over. I'm like, "That's weird. What are y'all doing?" Right? I was waiting for the keep coming back thing, at the end. And my sponsor was at my wedding. There's all kinds of stuff, right? And I went back to college, and it took a long while, right? And I went after that and got some more degrees, and I got a job outside. Once I finished my last degree, and it was in Orlando. So my wife and I, packed up, moved out to Orlando. I didn't love it, but it was fun, right? And then what happened was we were there a few months. My mom came out to visit. It had been a while since I saw her. And when my mom showed up, she's bright yellow, right? And my mom's alcoholic like me. And so we talk, right? She's out of it. Took her like 4.5 hours to get from Tampa to Orlando, which is, that's way longer than it should take, right? And I drive her home, and we get to her house, and I open up the door, and bugs fly out at me, right? And she also loved to read, so she's like a hoarder with books, right? There's just probably a bunch of stolen library books, and just stacks of them everywhere. And it's like it's the same thing as my place, right? She brought Skid Row home to her, and we took her to the hospital, and she had terminal cirrhosis, and the doctors were basically like, "Look, we don't know how long she's got, but just make the most of it." And so that's what we did. And the funny thing is so like my mom's house was disgusting. We ended up selling it, but for AA showed up, right? And there's just all these people come to help me clean out my mother's house, and this poor newcomer girl, her sponsor told her to come and help, and she shows up like dressed up, and I'm like, "Oh, you don't know where you're at, do you?" And you just sort my mom's books, I guess, right? And don't touch anything else. And and then a little time goes by. My mom, I keep telling her, like, "There's AA, Mom, like, that I've been sober like 12 years at this point, and all my friends, like, there's women there, they're your age." She's like, "Yeah, I just talk to you." I'm like, "Nah, I'd prefer not," like think a different way. And what happened was after about a year, it just caught up with her, right? And she was on hospice. We're just me and her just eating cheesecake together now at this point, and playing cards and all that stuff. And the guys I sponsor are coming, they're picking me up, and they're taking me to meetings, and they're taking me back to my mom's house, right? And my sponsor's calling me. He's like, "Let's talk about your A step real quick, right? And make sure that everything's clear." We did that, and at the end of it, he said, "You're good. Just go be a son," right? And so my mom, like I said, she was on hospice, so she passed. And then the next day, I found out I was going to be a dad, right? And it's weird because I got to tell you, my girls are adopted, right? Both of my daughters, and so that means like the state of Florida approved a guy like me to be a dad, right? Like it's not the easier way, and which come to find out in my experience isn't that easy. And don't use that as your own protection. But I got approved. I got a daughter, right? And then we moved back to Tampa, and a few months later we got to do it again. But we don't have enough money, right? Adoption's expensive, right? And I'm dodging all these creditors of my mother, right? Because she's an alcoholic, so she's got a bunch of them. They're calling these unknown numbers, and one of them came up, and I answered, and it's just like, it's such a wild thing, because I answered, and they're like, "Are you Ryan Angel?" Like, "Yeah." "Is your mom Rebecca Angel?" "Yeah." I'm like, "What do you want?" Right? Like, "Your mom had a life insurance policy that you're the beneficiary of, and it happened to be the exact amount that I needed to adopt my second daughter," right? Like almost to the penny. And so my wife thinks that my mom did them both, right? Like she died and made us parents, and I don't disagree, right? And so we had my second daughter, Emmy. Emmy was a different child, right? She was sick, right? There was something wrong, and we took her to a hospital, took her to a doctor. She had terminal brain cancer. And so I show up, and I just do the things, right? I do all the things, right? I go to the hospital, living in the hospital. We're just doing everything we can to take care of people. People are picking me up, taking me to AA meetings. We live in a hospital for 4 or 5 months, and then Emmy dies. And I don't tell you that for sympathy, right? I don't say it even for somebody out there thinking that, like, wow, he went through that and stayed sober. Maybe I can too. I don't know that works, right? If it does, great. But for me, it's more what happened after that is I got real lonely in AA, right? Because I'd been through some traumatic stuff, right? It hurt. And I felt like people didn't share my experience. And And I got real off the beam, and I got real lonely. And I say that because at one point, my sponsor found a guy that had the same experience as me. And I called him, and we talked, and he gave me like nothing that would help, right? It's just, we're not alone, right? And so I say that because there's probably someone in here that's going through something tough, right? Let's talk, right? Or talk to someone that shares your experience. I'm happy to do it. And so, that was tough, right? I go this period of AA where I'm belligerent at God, right? I don't want to do this stuff. I'm the most off the beam in AA I've ever been, right? I'm going to my home group once a week, and that's it. And if I miss it, oops, And people I sponsor are asking me, "Are you okay? What's going on?" Getting different sponsors. People I'd sponsored for years, right? And I don't know why I didn't drink, right? There was moments. I want to tell you, like, I didn't think about drinking during this time. I did, 100%, right? There was nights where I thought to myself, I'm just going to make it another week, and then we'll figure it out from there, right? Just make it to your home group on Thursday and get there and talk to some people and then see what happens, right? Plenty of times like that. And I'd love to tell you it went on for like 6 months, and then I got better. It went on for like 4 or 5 years. Resentments, anger, fear, all of that stuff. And I don't know what happened, right? I got back on the beam, right? I got the sponsor I have today. Accountability became important in my life again, and I started to just try and do these things. And, it's hard, right? But like the other thing that happened was so like I said, my wife and I adopted kids because we've had doctors telling us forever we're never going to biologically have children, right? And so we're now giving up on that, right? And we're just like, whatever, we're going to travel. It's going to be fun, you know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. And then my wife's like, I'm pregnant, I'm like, holy, I didn't think that would happen, right? And, so now I'm like 42, right, about to have another kid. My son is about to turn 3. My oldest daughter's 11, right? She probably got the worst of it because we're about to take her like world traveling, right? Now we're like sitting at home, and she's like, for this, he doesn't do anything. This is terrible. And I just got to do all that, and it was, it's really beautiful, right? He looks just like me. It's weird. I play with my kids. I love my kids. I show up for my kids. I show up for my wife. I show up for my family. I try and show up for my friends. I try to do these things. And it's important, right? It's important because I don't want to be the person that came around and got sober 22 years ago and got his and left, right? Because, I've had some hard stuff, but I've also had some amazing stuff. My life is so different than it was. And to leave now and just go sit there and have my name, I'm not going to make it as part of it, but the other part is, how selfish am I at that point, right? To just sit here and have this gift that's been given to me and just squander it in my house, probably being mean to everybody at that point. And so I try and do these things. And like I said, I got back in with my sponsor. We, just kind of got to it, right? And he told me to call him Monday through Friday. And he hasn't told me to stop yet, so I call him Monday through Friday. And, I'm the most sponsored I've been in 10 years, right, at this point. And it feels really good. And I'll tell you, like I said, I went through this dark time with like a power greater than myself, or whatever you want to call it. It was really, really hard, right? I always had this idea that I'm going to continue to seek anyways, right? And I'm not going to be the guy in the AA meeting that's like, there's no God, right? Because that's just mean, and some poor newcomers out there like, I believe in God, right? Am I screwed? And it's like, no, you're actually fine. And, so I wasn't that, but I had it all inside, right? And then last year the hurricane came, right? And my house had like 4 feet of water in it. It's a little ranch-style house, and we lost most of our stuff, right? And it's like 2 days in, my wife and I look at each other like, wow, that's not even like top 5 hardest things we've been through. So like, I guess that's good, and then also, but like the whole time I had this like, there's days it was tough, right? Like we bought another house. It's like I have 2 houses, right? One of them is like an environmental hazard that I can't even go in, right? And this is the other one I can't afford. And so like there's some stressful days for sure. But for the most part, I had a feeling the entire time that I was going to be taken care of. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't know if it was going to be good or bad. But I knew I'd be sober, right? And I knew I'd be okay. And I knew it would work out however it was supposed to be. And at some point in the future, it'll make more sense. And some of that stuff hasn't come yet. Like my wife talks about, like she has a list of things she wants to ask God when she gets to heaven, right? Because that's what she believes in. She has like a list of 5. I have a couple now myself, right? And they'll figure it out though. I'm not too worried about it. I don't think too much about it. I take the actions that are given to me, and it seems to work out. And I tell you, I've not always been consistent in AA. I've had long periods of time of consistency. I've had long periods of time of being inconsistent, right? I've always been persistent. I've never had this feeling that was just a phase, right? Because it wasn't for me, right? Like But the crazy thing is like I said, that whole time when I was like, just make it a week, I knew I was an alcoholic, right? It wasn't like, oh, you were young, you're probably fine. Like, now with all these responsibilities, of course you'll handle them, right? Like, that's crazy. And, there wasn't any of that. It was like, no, I'm going to blow everything up, but I can't live like this, right? Like, my brain is going too much. And to me, that's alcoholism, right? That's how this illness kills people like me, right? Because all of a sudden I start to think, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to do that anymore. And then my brain starts. And it gets so self-centered, it's so self-absorbed, that the only thing that makes any sense is to drink again. And so I'm just happy to be an AA member, right? I'm happy that I get to go and sit in my home group on a Thursday night. There's an energy there, and I get to be a part of it. I'm happy that I look around and I get to see a bunch of people I got to watch get sober, and just to be a small part of that, right? And again, nothing special, right? Nothing special. I've just been here a while, right? And I've gotten to watch a lot of really cool stuff happen because of that. And so what I try and do, and I'm not perfect at this, but what I try and do is in the back of the book, In a Vision for You, it talks about, when they were having the meetings in Akron, right, and they would bring the person from the hospital with his wife, and you'd be surprised because, they were laughing at their misfortunes and crying about their happiness, right, and that type of stuff, and that the newcomer succumbed to the crowd inside, right, and felt that there was a solution at last. That hit me, when I read that for the first time, that hit me so hard because that was my home group when I walked in. Right, there was a bunch of people that they were laughing and joking about all the crazy, stupid stuff they had done, and they were so happy for each other when things would happen that were good. And so I try and continue to do that. I think it's my responsibility to do that, right? If I'm just sitting there taking, I'm selling it short, right? I'm not paying my debt that's owed. My debt's huge. I'm so thankful, right, for Alcoholics Anonymous. So thankful for these people that have all walked in front of me. And I'm so thankful to the people that have gotten sober after me. Because I tell you what, the guys I sponsor, I swear help me more in being sponsored, right? Because they help me learn about patience and tolerance and love. And they help me see my own inventory. I can't tell you how many times the guys called me and been like, hey, I've been selfish in this way. I'm like, holy, me too. I didn't see it on my radar, right? I'll tell you a funny story. A couple weeks ago, I had a resentment going on, right? And I couldn't get in touch with my sponsor, so I called one of my pigeon brothers. And I start talking to him. And he kind of cuts me off, right? And he tells me something, right? And I got to tell you that I've told the same thing to like so many people in my sobriety, right? Like you should be thankful for the opportunity to look at yourself, right? Like from the resentment you have. This person that did something, you should thank them, right? Is what he told me. And I've told people that. It was nowhere on my radar, right? When it was my own resentment, right? It's like I have to have a sponsor, right? And so those two things, a home group, a sobriety date, those are the things that key. Those are my key to Alcoholics Anonymous, right? In fact, everything else tonight's been my experience, right? Those things are 100% facts. If you don't relate to my experience, that's okay, right? Somebody else might tell your story tomorrow. I hope somebody did, right? And I hope that there's somebody out there that's sitting like I was that night in rehab when that guy Brian came and told his story, and for the first time in their life, someone's like, yeah, I might have that too, right? But that's not my job, right? My job is just to try and carry the message. And but like I said at the beginning, I love coming up here. It's just such a fun meeting, right? And it reminds me of my home group, and I think that's good, right? It's good to take care and concern in your home group. I remember when I was new, somebody told me, I had like 3 or 4 months, I had a sponsor, I was doing the deal, and somebody told me if you do service in AA, you'll probably get a date. And so I'm like picking up all the chairs, Other people are picking up chairs, I'm yelling at them because they're taking away my date at this point. And, it didn't work, right? It didn't, but all of a sudden it went from a place that I visited on Thursday nights to my home group, right? My home group. So if you put those chairs now online, I'm going to say something to you about it, right? And as I've stayed sober a little bit, I've come to find out the traditions talk about it being our home group, right? Our group, right? Not just mine, and you're not doing it right. And there's a lot of misses there on my part. Ooh, I can tell you some stories on some stuff I pulled in my home group when we were new, right? Because it was a young people's group, and the guy with the most time had like 5 years, so it was totally the blind leading the blind, right? There was it was nuts. And, so there was that, but in the same spot, right? Like I've just gotten to watch it grow and change and be all these people and getting somewhere that I get to be welcomed on a Thursday night, in places where when I've gone through it, people have taken care of me, and places where other people have gone through it, I've taken care of them. And Alcoholics Anonymous is a beautiful place, right? I'm so grateful to be here with you guys tonight. That's all I got. Thanks.